Hi, welcome back. Last time we created a very simple setup to start a bike share by creating a state object that has some variables in it. Now that is representing one snapshot in time. What we'd like to do, if you're dealing with a bike share, you'd like to move bikes from one place to another. Right? Remember, we're dealing with Olin and Wellesley. We've got some bikes here. We've got some bikes here. And we'd like to move a bike from Olin to Wellesley or vice versa. All right, so what happens if we want to move a bike from Olin to Wellesley? Well, this bike gets moved. Let's see if I can do this. Boink. And I can move it over to here. Look at that. One bike moved from Olin to Wellesley. Well, that's what happens in the real world. A bike moves from Olin to Wellesley. How do we represent that in the computer? Well, in the computer, what we do is we say, all right, there used to be however many bikes there were at Olin. We have to take one of them away. And however many bikes there were at Wellesley, we have to add one to them. Right? So what does that look like? If we're going to put that into computer code, well, we're going to do this. We're going to say, so we need to access the information, right? In the back of our mind, we have our shopping bag here, right? In it, this is called bike share. Remember, we had this red. This was bike share. And in it, there were two variables. There was Olin and Wellesley. And so what we need to do is we need to access that information. We need to say, okay, bike share dot Olin, we need to bring that down by one. Now, we're going to use this operator here, minus equals 1. Right, what this says, when you see this minus equals, what that says is subtract 1 and redefine it. So bikeshare.olin, we said, whatever it was, we want to take 1 away and redefine that variable to be 1 less than it was. Similarly, we want to take bikeshare.wellesley plus equals 1. We want to take whatever Wellesley was, we want to add 1 to it and redefine it to be that. So if we run both lines of code, if we run both of these two lines of code, that is a virtual representation of the physical act of moving a bike. Alright, so those two lines of code together move the bike from Olin to Wellesley. Right? They don't physically move it, they just move it in our simulation. So if we want to do this, if we're dealing with a bike share, this is something that you do a lot. You often move a bike from Olin to Wellesley. You also often move a bike from Wellesley to Olin. So because this is something that we're going to be doing frequently, then it makes sense to create a function that will do both of these two things at the same time whenever it's called. So to automate them both at the same time, and give it an easy to remember name, we're going to define a function. So anytime this function is called, it will do this. It will move a bike from Olin to Wellesley. So let's give it a super simple, easy name to remember. So the name of this is going to be called bike underscore to underscore Wellesley. All right, and what do we want that to do? We want that to do bike share dot Olin minus equals 1 and let me clean that up a little bit. Undo. Bike to Wellesley minus equals 1 and bike share dot Wellesley plus equals 1. All right, so this is how in Python you can define a function. So let me put down some key takeaways here, things that you'll have to know anytime you want to define a function. So first thing to know. All right, let's use some highlighters. All right, first thing to know. Def. You definitely want to know this one, right? So in order to define a function, you need to use the keyword def. All right, so whenever you want to define a function, you use def space, and then this name that you gave it is the name of the function that you want it to be called. All right, something else. Next thing to know is this. Notice that we've put here some parentheses. Use parentheses. Later on, we will put some parameters into these parentheses so you could pass some information into this function. All right. The next thing you should know, so end the first line with a colon. All right, new color, green. All right, so this colon is going to be something that will reoccur time and time again in Python. This is telling us this is the end of the definition line. And anytime you see this colon, this is something special for Python. It cares about this white space. So you end the first line with colon and you indent all other lines. And so what this does is it indents all the other lines. What it does is by doing the indentation, by doing the indentation, what you're doing is you're saying everything that's indented is part of this definition. Okay, so in this definition, after we have created this definition, we can keep adding some more code afterwards, but because it's not part of the indent, then Python knows that uh, it's not part of the bike to Wellesley function. So everything indented is part of this definition, and as a corollary, white space matters. So when you're talking about indenting, you can't just be willy-nilly with indenting. They're all at the same indentation, and that's just the structure of these things. So that's in terms of the syntax of defining a function. And so when we do this, so when we are defining a function, no commands are called. That is, it doesn't actually do the work until you ask it to do this work later. This is only the definition state. Definition statement. To call the function and actually get it to do those things, type in bike to Wellesley bike share. All right, let's go do this right now. Let's head over to the code. All right, so we're back in the code. We're back in the Chapter 2 notebook. We've got everything up until this point. There's some things above this. I'm going to run this. Let's see what happens. Right, bike share dot olin minus equals 1. Uh-oh, we ran into a problem. It's got an error. What does this error say? This error says name bike share not defined. Okay, so this is something that's probably going to happen to you at least once. What happened? Well, the thing that happened is that when we joined this file, we hadn't run any of the things that are above it in the file. So even though the last time we opened this file, we ran the first cell and we defined bike share, that doesn't mean that it remembers. You have to go back to the start and rerun the cells from the start. And now when we run this code, we can see that we subtracted a bike from Olin. And we can see if we use bikeshare.wellesley plus equals 1, we add a bike to Wellesley. All right, so if you see an error like that, that something's not defined, that's probably because you didn't redefine your cells. You didn't rerun the cells from the top. All right, so here's this function. We're going to define bike to Wellesley. Again, creating that function doesn't run the function, right? So if we go and we look at what bike share looks like, it shouldn't have changed from the last time, right? Above we had sent the bike from Olin to Wellesley manually. But once we defined this function, it didn't do anything. But now, if we run this code, bam, a bike went from Olin to Wellesley. Run it again, bike went from Olin to Wellesley. Run it again, bike went from Olin to Wellesley. If you run it without the parentheses, it just tells you what it is. It doesn't actually run it. All right, so it's up to you now to practice using this function. So you practice using this function by creating one of the other ones that send the bike the other way. I guess this way. Right, no, this way. It sends a bike from Olin to Wellesley. No, sorry, from Wellesley to Olin instead of Olin to Wellesley. So try it out and get it working. All right, that's it for today. See you next time.